The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the bacon is sizzling. Welcome to the Daily Swole.
Welcome everyone to the Daily Mother Swole numero 73. Talking about the end of days, in part because I just got stuck in traffic while bathing in my own sweat because I taught a ridiculous hot yoga class. So I decided I wanted to hit yoga again and reiterate certain points that might not have been covered in other elements. I noticed a lot of people ask me questions about yoga. I've been posting a lot about yoga lately on my Instagram account. I've been doing one of those yoga challenges online. And as you may know, I teach several yoga classes a week. One of the major importances of yoga that we don't really discuss, talk a lot about stretching, talk a lot about compensations. I'll touch base on those things again in a different light. But yoga for the mental balance. And I'm not talking about spiritual. I'm not talking about, Om Shanti Shanti. I'm not talking about like the yin yang kind of stuff. I'm talking about the massage for the parasympathetic nervous system. You got two divisions of the nervous system. You have the sympathetic and you have the parasympathetic. The sympathetic is also known as the fight or flight. The parasympathetic is also known as the housekeeping. So you have two different systems, two different gears, one that you shift into when you're running from danger, when you're working out, when you're scared, when you're up. So for example, the sympathetic nervous system fires when you are increasing your heart rate, when you're sending blood flow to the muscles, when you are running from an animal, your pupils dilate, your sweat rate increases, your heart rate increases, your respiratory rate increases. And all of those aspects of yoga and what yoga will do to balance and to neutralize those aspects of the sympathetic nervous system. You stimulate that all the time. If you're doing weight training, if you're doing heavy resistance training regularly, and I'm talking about, I'm talking about yoga in terms of anyone that wants to get in shape, anyone that wants to lose weight, anyone that wants to be healthier. But if you're looking at it from a resistance training standpoint, from someone who does a lot of weights, who does a lot of overload, you are stimulating the sympathetic nervous system. We always usually stimulate the sympathetic nervous system because we're stressed out. We're stressed out in society, in our lives. Generally, people are stressed out in traffic. You're stressed out with your job. You're stressed out with the fact that you're having trouble building muscle. You're stressed out with the fact that you're having trouble losing weight. You're stressed out with your spouse, with your boyfriend, with your girlfriend, with your children that are getting out of control because they're teenagers, with anything. Because Netflix isn't loading. And the new season of House of Cards just came on and it won't fucking load. It won't load. The bar goes halfway and it just stays there and it pisses you off. So you can be stressed about a lot of different things and a lot of stresses come out in different ways. But what yoga will do will balance that aspect, because when you go into the gym, when you do resistance training, you are really hitting the sympathetic nervous system hard. You are really overloading the sympathetic nervous system hard. Yoga helps to soothe that. There is no stress in yoga. There is no fight or flight. There is no danger in that space on your mat, so to speak. We always talk about keeping it on your mat, keeping it within your little center. Do what feels right for you on that little rectangle, on your mat, in your personal space. So yoga helps balance out the body, but also helps out balance out the mind, and not from a spiritual aspect, but from a neurological aspect. From a neurological point of view, it is very I'm going to make up a word, parasympathizing. Check that out. You won't find that. That's like an urban diction. That's like an urban folklore right there. That's a legend. That's myth. Parasympathizing. It activates that aspect of the nervous system. It helps the body recover, helps the body repair. And I'm not just necessarily talking literally, because when you're exercising and doing yoga, there's blood flow to the muscles. There is sympathetic activity, but neurally, it is very relaxing and soothing. It can be stressful momentarily, but in general, it will activate those calming aspects. It neutralizes the sympathetic activity. It will help reduce internal stress as well as mental stress. So you're creating balance with the body. Let's talk again a little bit about balance. we all move forward and back mostly. We move sometimes side to side, and we move rotationally. There's 3 different planes of motion the human body can move in. It can move front to back, which is sagittal plane. It can move side to side, which is frontal. And it can rotate, which is also known as the horizontal or the transverse plane. So you have 3 different ways and infinite number of combinations which you can move. Most people get hurt rotating, bending over and twisting to pick something up. You herniate a disc, or you pop something in your back, or you twist your knee. You screw up your ACL or your shoulder, rotate your rotator cuff, rotator cuff, transverse plane of motion. So you have more injuries that take place there and the reason why more injuries take place in the transverse plane is generally because we don't move as much in that plane. A lot of joints have more limited range of motion or limited mobility in that area. Most of the joints that will be at risk for transverse injury are in areas that there's compressive force, like the lower back doesn't really rotate well. So you have the lower body creating force on the lower back, and you also have the upper body stacked on top of it. So it takes less of a sharp movement to create injury. It's not so much like the neck will have a problem as much as like the lower back, even though people have neck pain all the time, but there's more force and compressive force, which means that it takes less to tweak the back than it does the neck, for example. Like you could turn your neck really hard, you twist your back really hard the same way, you're probably likely going to have more of a lower back problem than an upper body problem, just because the neck is used to rotating a little bit more. But this is just in general. This is like a theoretical, like, you'll have, but more than 90% of people in this country have a lower back problem at some point in their life. So the numbers speak true. Pretty much everyone has a lower back injury at some point. You pull a muscle. It doesn't mean you have chronic pain, but you're going to have an injury. And a lot of people do have recurring injuries and repetitive injuries and chronic injuries that turn into chronic problems. And that can relate to other problems that go up and down the body. You can have shoulder pain because of a back problem. You can have knee and ankle pain because of a back problem. So you can have a lot of issues because of that. Yoga will help balance that. Yoga takes you through all the different planes of motion, helps balance that front to back compensation aspect of the front of the hips getting very tight, the back of the hips getting very weak, the front of the shoulders getting very tight, the back of the shoulders getting very weak. Yoga helps open up all those things by activating muscles on the back of the shoulder, by activating muscles in the glutes, by shutting down and stretching and lengthening the muscle in the front of the hip. So yoga is going to create balance physically and mentally. And it's very important to understand the concept or the benefit or the impact that a mental balance or that a mental soothe or a mental massage can do to the body. And a lot of times yoga is referred to as a moving meditation, where you are actually in a kind of zone or a trance-like state as you move through the poses. And as you move with the breath, as the body moves with the breath, and as you take it through the different various poses in yoga, it can be a moving meditation. So it's very soothing mentally, it's very soothing neurally, as well as spiritually, depending on how you practice it. And it's also very nurturing and balancing and fulfilling physically. So you're reducing a lot of internal tension that builds up from stress, that builds up from resistance training, and you are dispersing it and you're releasing that tension. Now, what that means is now you have more muscle fiber that can be activated. You have a greater length and range of motion. So you're reducing injury, you're increasing the ability and the amount of fibers that are present that are able to enact force, that can contract, that can produce force, that can lift the weight, that can, just the body has less tension where it needs to move. So you're able to produce more force. If you do yoga and you're more flexible, you will have better pumps. You will have better muscle definition. You will have better muscle fullness and better dispersal and better detail in your muscle development, especially if you're cutting. So you are hitting all these little small stabilizers that don't get hit when you're doing heavy strength training. But these are the ones that are the most preventative for injury because they're close to the bone, they're underneath, they're deep, they're not superficial. You can't see these muscles from the outside in general unless you're very, very lean, and only in certain positions can you see them. The superficial muscles produce more strength, the stabilizers underneath produce stability, and those are the ones that get tweaked. The rotator cuff, the hip, the inner groin, the ones that you can't see are the ones that are the ones that are affected by injuries. Those are the ones that get hurt because they're weaker, because you are not practicing yoga. You are not hitting these individual muscles. You're going to the gym, you're doing pressing, squats, lunges, more forceful movements. You're moving throughout your day in limited planes of motion, front to back, side to side. You're not doing stability. You're not balancing on one leg. You're not standing up a lot. You're not walking a lot. So you're putting your body in a position to tighten up stronger muscles, superficial muscles, and only certain ones, and you're just ignoring the ones that are really on the inside that are balancing the joints out. And those are going to get stiff, those are going to get brittle, those are going to get weak, and those are the ones that are going to get hurt. Okay? So if you don't practice yoga, just like the title, it will be the end of days. The end of fucking days. Arnold's going to show up and, you're going to have to fight good and evil. All hell is going to break loose if you don't do yoga. Maybe not now, maybe not in 5 years or in 10 years, but down the line, you are going to feel the effects of not being flexible. You see old people stumbling around. You see old people walking around being immobile. They look dry. They are dry. They look like shriveled up prunes and they can barely fucking walk. It makes me nauseous because just because you're 75, you should be able to walk fine. I see 75-year-olds in the gym that you wouldn't even know they're 75. I mean, there's a 93-year-old Chinese woman in my class that does yoga regularly, and she does like headstands and stuff, and she doesn't move, she has to sometimes help herself out of positions, but she's fucking 93, and she's like more mobile than most people, and she looks like she's 78. I mean, it's just amazing how it can preserve you and how it can keep you mobile, okay? So there's many aspects to yoga. Understand that there's also the mental aspect too. Don't ignore it. Try it. Do something. Watch some of my videos. Watch a video on YouTube, go to a class, go to a gym class, go to a private studio, just do some form of it. Meditate, practice it, look up some poses, practice it. Just start doing something, get your feet wet, and then take it from there. Thank you for joining me for the end of days episode number 73 of The Daily Mother Swole. If you haven't seen my YouTube channel, putting up a stupid amount of YouTube videos. I'm going to film a ton more today. That Raw series, you have to check it out, is off the chain. Also, the accountability meeting for Swolenormous Premium will be at 1 o'clock. Remember, go on that Facebook page, the premium page, and give me your Periscope name if you have not already. But it will be on there. It will be on Facebook Live. And I'm also going to possibly screencast it from Periscope and upload it and do a native post through YouTube so we can save like the interactions on Periscope, maybe. But I'll be giving some announcements in Premium and on the broadcast for the accountability meeting at 1 o'clock. I'll be giving some updates on some things that I'm going to be doing and just let you know where Premium is going. And we'll break down some stuff with ketosis and the nutrition and the stuff that Wolf posted in Premium on the page last night or the day before, okay? So I'll see everyone. If you're interested in Premium, if you're interested in accountability and taking your fitness to the next level, yeah, Raw is sick. Check out my website, Swolenormous.com. It's my $4.99 a month service for the first probably about 100 members. We're still filling up, but slowly but surely, community is super tight, and it's awesome. It's awesome. So private meeting, private scopes, and more of that to come, and I'll explain in the meeting at 1 o'clock. So about beard gains, I'm sorry, you might just have to up your manliness. But I'll tell you what, if you watch every single Daily Swole, it'll start growing a lot more full. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. All right. Take care, guys. I will see everyone tomorrow. Some of you I'll see in a couple minutes on the private scope. Peace out. Mañana at noon. Peace out. See ya.